Breaking. The FBI just dropped a bombshell about the Kada case. And let me tell you, this isn't just some random crime story, this is a full-blown setup straight out of a Netflix thriller. You mean to tell me a 23-year-old woman disappears? Police search the area for a whole week, claim they find nothing, and then magically stumble upon her body right after a mysterious midnight tip. Come on now. Are we supposed to believe that's coincidence, or cover-up? Because something is seriously not adding up. Why was Kada's body suddenly found in a place the cops already combed through? Who moved her? Who tipped them off? And more importantly, who's pulling the strings behind the scenes? I'm talking about whispers of hidden evidence, strange phone calls, and now an alleged FBI leak suggesting that Kada was tortured before she was killed, and it was all part of a planned setup. Yeah, you heard that right. This case isn't just tragic, it's twisted, and the deeper you dig, the darker it gets. So grab your popcorn, because we're about to unravel the secrets they don't want you to know. When the story first broke about a young woman named Laina Cross being found in a shallow grave behind an abandoned school, people thought it was another tragic disappearance gone wrong. But as soon as the FBI stepped in, everything began to smell like a setup that had been carefully planned from the start. Because nothing about this case made sense from day one. The police said they had been searching that same area for days and found nothing, yet one random night they get a so-called anonymous tip, rush back to the same woods, and suddenly uncover a grave that was barely covered by dirt. The locals started whispering immediately that someone had moved the body there after the initial search. And the question everyone kept asking was who had the power and the access to pull that off without being seen. Then came the reports about her last phone calls, mysterious messages that vanished, and a gold car that was spotted circling her neighborhood the night she went missing. People online began connecting dots faster than the authorities, claiming that Laina had been targeted because she knew something she wasn't supposed to know. Screenshots started spreading across social media showing her texting a friend about a man named Kellen Price, a guy with a record for harassment who had somehow escaped trial twice. Neighbors said they saw a woman matching Laina's description get into a car with him that night. And yet when police were asked about it, they dodged questions like they were hiding behind legal walls. The so-called FBI leak that surfaced days later made things worse because it suggested that the original investigation had been tampered with from the inside. A file allegedly described how key evidence was misplaced, how digital records disappeared from the system, and how one officer had been transferred right after the first search failed. On the streets, people said Laina had been in touch with a journalist working on a corruption story involving city officials and a private security contractor. And suddenly that angle started to look like the missing piece of the puzzle. The rumor was that she had been gathering proof of illegal payments disguised as donations. And once someone in that circle found out, she was silenced. The grave behind the school wasn't random either. It was supposedly land-owned by the same contractor she was investigating. Every thread of this case felt tied to another darker story, like a spiderweb built to confuse anyone who tried to follow it. What made it even stranger was the timing, because only hours before her disappearance, surveillance footage caught her stopping at a gas station where she appeared nervous, checking her rearview mirror repeatedly as if she knew she was being watched. That image burned into everyone's minds because it looked like she sensed what was coming but had nowhere to run. And now the world was left wondering if the truth had been buried deeper than her body itself. By the time the second week rolled around, the story had already exploded online, and people were demanding answers that no one in authority seemed willing to give, which only made the theories spread faster than wildfire. Someone claimed to have leaked audio from a supposed FBI meeting where agents discussed how the original search had been redirected at the last minute by a higher-up who insisted they focus on the wrong sector of the woods, and that one decision made it possible for whoever was behind Laina's disappearance to hide her body in plain sight. Another anonymous post from an account calling itself Shadow Witness said that Laina had recorded a voice memo the night she vanished, a chilling 2-minute file where she whispered that someone was following her, and that if anything happened to her, people should look at Kellen and the company he worked for, Orion Shield Security. Within hours of that claim going viral, the company locked its social media pages and deleted public statements, which made everything look even more suspicious, because who scrubs their accounts in the middle of a missing person case unless they have something to hide? Then came a photograph showing Kellen standing at a fundraiser with one of the city's deputy directors, both smiling like old friends, and people lost their minds. The question became not just who killed Laina, but who was protecting the killer. Every live stream and podcast wanted a piece of the story. Influencers were breaking down grainy CCTV frames, and amateur detectives were mapping out routes from the nursing home where Lena worked to the abandoned school where she was found. One streamer claimed to have tracked the gold car's license plate to a shell company registered in another state, with ties to a private security contract the city quietly renewed that same month. Nothing about it sounded random anymore. It felt like a network of power where everyone was covering for everyone else. Even more bizarre was when a woman calling herself Marcy came forward saying she used to work for Orion Shield and that the company kept what she called a clean list, a file of people they monitored because they were potential liabilities. According to her, Lena's name had been added just a week before she went missing. Of course, no one could verify her story, but it didn't stop people from believing every word. The public was hooked. The media was spinning. And still the official investigators said nothing. Leaks kept trickling out about missing video footage from a nearby traffic camera and evidence logs that were overwritten, as if the system itself was eating its own tracks. And through all the chaos, one haunting image remained on every screen. That last sight of Lena at the gas station, glancing over her shoulder. The look in her eyes not of fear but of realization that she had stumbled into something too big to escape. As pressure mounted and the outrage reached its peak, something finally snapped within the system, and that was when new files appeared online claiming to be internal reports from Orion Shield showing detailed payments to unnamed officials coded as project maintenance, which many believed were actually hush transactions connected to Lena's disappearance. The so-called leaks showed multiple deposits timed right after the police announced delays in their investigation, which made people suspect the entire search had been manipulated to buy time while the evidence was being cleaned up. Then out of nowhere, a video surfaced showing a man resembling Kellen Price at a remote gas station just days after Lena vanished. And in the footage he looked directly at the camera before driving off in a car with its plates removed. A scene that gave the internet chills because it felt like he knew exactly what he was doing. People began flooding the mayor's office with calls demanding an independent probe, while journalists who tried to dig deeper started reporting that they were being followed or receiving strange calls at night warning them to drop the story. The city tried to calm everyone down with a press conference saying the FBI was reviewing the evidence, but no one trusted a single word anymore because the same people who failed to find Lena were now promising transparency. Then a twist hit that no one saw coming. A former IT employee from the police department came forward anonymously, claiming that someone had access to the evidence database using a restricted clearance code hours before the files went missing, and that the access belonged to a senior detective who mysteriously took leave right after. The implication was explosive because if that was true, it meant the cover-up ran deep inside the very institutions meant to protect her. Meanwhile, independent researchers pieced together that Orion Shield had quietly rebranded under a new name and continued getting contracts funded by taxpayer money. As this revelation spread, protesters gathered outside City Hall holding pictures of Lena and chanting for justice, while online groups promised to leak everything they found. It felt like the city was on the edge of collapse. Officials scrambling to control the narrative while citizens refused to stay quiet. Some said the FBI had already identified 2 key suspects but was waiting to make arrests until they secured evidence from encrypted devices. Others claimed those suspects were already gone, vanished like smoke. The story that began with a missing woman had turned into a full-scale scandal that threatened to expose a web of corruption, stretching far beyond one case. And through it all, Lena's name became a symbol of truth, buried and clawing its way back to light. The final image that circulated everywhere was a mural painted overnight on the wall of the abandoned school, her face rising above the shadows as if reminding everyone that secrets may hide for a while but they never stay buried forever. So now that everything has come to light, or at least as much as they'll let us see, the question is, where do we go from here? Because if the story of Lena Cross teaches us anything, it's that silence protects the guilty and noise exposes them. The people in power are counting on everyone to move on, forget, and scroll to the next headline. But that's exactly how stories like this die, and how justice keeps getting delayed. So if you're watching this right now, ask yourself how many other cases like this have been buried under excuses. How many names have vanished from public memory because nobody kept asking the hard questions? Drop your thoughts in the comments because I want to know what you really think is going on here. Do you believe the truth will ever come out, or will this just fade away like every other so-called investigation? And if you want to keep uncovering the secrets they try to hide, make sure you hit that like button, share this video, and subscribe, because the deeper we dig, the closer we get to the truth. And I promise you the next story is even darker.